Have you ever wanted to take Age of Mythology and Warcraft 2, blend them up, and then drink the resulting game? Well, confusing analogy aside, that's this game. War Party is a classic-style RTS set in an alternate Stone Age, which I can say I've only seen one other time. Ugh. And it's pretty good, pretty alright. Little bit of good, little bit of bad. I want to go ahead and put a note here that I'm judging this game from a single player perspective because I'm that weirdo that likes playing RTS games for the campaign and random skirmishes sometimes. Well, that and I suck against trying to play them against other people. So, the game does have multiplayer, it exists, doesn't really look like anyone's playing it though, but I'm just putting that out there. So let's take a look at the... Long ago, there was a tribe of humans called the Goan, and they found some magical shit that let them mold reality. They could make and control dinosaurs. They eventually became divided on the true purpose of this magic shit though, so they went and all died in a big war over it. They left their artifacts behind though, with instructions on how to use them to fulfill their original goals. Mika, the leader of the new Wildlanders tribe, finds a Goan gauntlet that allows her to control dinosaurs. She just wants the humans to have a good life and really to not let the other two factions succeed, because, Speaking of the other factions, this one guy meditated so hard that he left his humanity behind and was guided to a Goan staff that gave him a vision of humanity ruining the world. Must have seen an episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Oh no, now it's gonna be on my YouTube recommendation. Aided by dinosaurs and spirits, this sage decides that humans are unfit to live on the world and must be eliminated so nature can take it all back. Then there's this third guy named Char. He finds a Goan hammer, and it drives him crazy and convinces him that this whole living thing sucks, and the afterlife is where it's at. So he and his tribe decide to put an end to all life that exists. It's a good plan. Simple. So these three factions are fighting over Goan temples that can power them up enough to fulfill their goals. And they do that by... Wait a second. It's an RTS. You get builders. They gather things and build buildings. Buildings make units. Make a few. No, make a lot. Then the units fight other units, but some units are better than fighting other units. It's like rock, paper, scissors up in this joint. It's a pretty standard RTS for the most part. The three factions, the Wildlanders, your regular humans that ride dinosaurs, the Necromas, crazy humans and undead elementals, yeah, and the Vithara, dinosaurs, animals, and spirits. They have some minor differences, but they mostly operate the same. You build workers and use them to harvest food and crystals. There's also a power resource that you can get from building a certain thing or capturing these shrines on the map. Power can be used to activate special abilities that are unique to each faction. Vithara also need power to build a lot of their better units because magic dinosaurs. Each faction has 3 tech levels that you advance through by leveling up your main building. When you upgrade to the next tier, you get to choose between 2 passive bonuses that affect the rest of the match you're currently in. Each faction also has a leader unit that has a lot of health and does pretty big damage, but they don't level up or get any abilities like, say, Warcraft 3. As far as game modes, there's campaign, skirmish, and survival, and they're exactly what you think they are. Survival is kind of neat. You have little lanes on the side of the map and you get attacked by waves of enemies and you gotta survive. But that's basically the game, so what's good about it? My favorite thing in this whole game is the voice acting. It could either be a pro or a con because it sounds like...
I'll get muscles like these. Bench press T-Rex, of course.
Yeah, that's golden. It's just... mwah. My favorite is the Sage character, who sounds kind of like Donald Trump doing a hippie impression with the inflections of a William Shatner.
They have been wounded by the Berserker tribe that lives here and need healing. The nearby river is the home of Nereids, water spirits with healing abilities. I should seek them out.
It's perfect. For an indie RTS game, it plays not horribly. Not great, but not the worst I've ever seen. I like that the campaign isn't absurdly long. It's 6 missions, but you can do it with all 3 factions. The game is also not lacking in difficulty modes. It has 6. For the most part, the difficulty on the missions is pretty good too. They start off easy and progressively get harder as they go along. The objectives in the missions are mostly just, hey, kill the other faction. But there are a few exceptions that make you really think about how you're supposed to beat the level. The population cap is pretty large too, and you can control unlimited units at once, so that's always nice. Build times are pretty short too, so you can build up fairly quickly. Nothing really stuck out to me as extremely OP in this game, except maybe for massing the basic ranged dinosaur unit with the Vithara. Then you just kinda to victory. There's also this pretty neat thing you can do with the UI where if you select a bunch of units, it will tell you how many of each type of unit is in your stack, and you can select just those units. The hotkeys are also MOBA-ized and they're pretty easy to remember. You got Qurazdif, with most unit active abilities being on X or Z. The general gameplay is pretty good. It's just too bad that there's no lack of... Alright, so most of the campaign's missions take 20 to 30 minutes, right? That's a pretty decent chunk of time. Say you get 10 minutes in and nothing is happening. You have your economy all set up and you're doing pretty good. Maybe you want to save so you don't have to start over with 4 workers at tier 1 again. Oh. There's no save button. You can't save. Which is fine, I guess. But the beginning 5 or so minutes of literally almost every mission is just trying to build up your resources and base, and it's not interesting. You rarely get attacked early on, with the exception of the dang second mission as the Vithara. In this mission, the Wildlanders you're supposed to kill are invincible until you lead all these slow-ass Stegodons back to your base without a single one dying, and then destroy a different enemy base. All the while, the Wildlanders are sending increasingly large forces straight to your base to end your existence, like top-tier units on Mission 2. Fortunately, when the mission starts, there's an ice barrier that literally blocks your base off from the rest of the map until you talk to the
water spirits.
So I'm free to just sit back and build up an impossible to defeat army, then lower the gate, save all the Stegodons, and kill the enemy bases. I don't know how I would have done it without that ice wall. Was it intended? There's some other stuff that's kinda glitchy or janky too. Units have a tendency to sometimes just like stick to each other or the land or do anything but the thing that they're supposed to be doing. There's also this other thing I thought was pretty hilarious where if you attack a melee unit with a ranged unit, the melee unit just won't aggro and they'll just stand there until they die. This didn't come up much, but when it did, it was pretty funny. The races aren't incredibly varied. They have basically the same unit archetypes with slightly different stats and maybe 1 or 2 unique units. It seemed to me that many of the powers weren't all that useful either, but they were hardly ever necessary. They definitely weren't on the level of god powers from Age of Mythology. I should probably mention the UI too. I mean, you've seen it. The UI in this game leaves a bit to be desired. Everything is really tiny and spread out for some reason. Like there's this huge panel in the middle, but most of it's empty space and what is there is tiny. It doesn't break the game, just my eyes. The only other negative I got is that the story is just not interesting, and the story for all 3 factions is the exact same series of events. I'm gonna spoil the whole game. If you don't want that, then skip to this part of the vidya. You are now listening to the complete story of War Party. Mission 1, you get your shit together as a faction. Mission 2, encounter Faction B and fight over a Goen Temple. It gets destroyed. Mission 3, encounter Faction C and fight over a Goen Temple. It gets destroyed. Mission 4, encounter Faction B again and fight over another Goen Temple. It gets destroyed. Mission 5, encounter Faction C again and fight over a Goen Temple. It gets destroyed. Mission 6, all 3 factions fight over a Goen Temple, and they win and do the thing that they wanted to. It gets destroyed. No, wait, that's just my enthusiasm to finish the other 2 campaigns after I finish the Wildlanders one. The only difference is that whatever faction you're playing always gets flipped to be the underdog. If you're the Wildlanders, the Sage already controls the temple, and he's turning all your dudes into dinosaurs every 3 seconds. If you're the Sage, the Wildlanders are interrupting you with surprise attacks before you control it. There's a moment that I think is really amusing. It's when the Sage and the Wildlanders first meet each other. The Sage is like, yo, my plan is to like end all human life because nature needs to take it back and stuff. You agree with my plan? And the Wildlanders, who are obviously humans, are like, nah, bruh. You can't be doing that. And then the Sage is like, well, heck, why don't you agree with me? We're gonna fight now. Of course they're not gonna agree with your plan, you dingus. You can find this game on Steam for $25 US. I bought it for about $17 on sale, and I played it for about 10 hours, and I'm not mad. You get a pretty fun, light RTS out of it. It has its problems, but for an indie game studio attempting a very hard-to-produce niche genre, I liked it. Speaking of liking things, if you like this video, smash like and subscribe. I will have new stuff in a bit. New reviews, old reviews. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Haha, see ya.